C. We'll be right back.
It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. It's the only daily boxing talk show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
Studios in Lake George, in New York. I'm Bill Calagiano. It's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're listening, whenever you're watching. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant, located on beautiful St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. I'll give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. And today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. It's available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of it right now where you're watching or listening to the show. Just visit barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting Tom Molyneux's story told and why I want you guys, boxing fans, and then some, to know about Tom Molyneux. Hey, you're looking to get a signed copy? Just visit our website, billycboxing.com. And don't forget, if you're looking to get multiple copies, which I strongly suggest, at a discount price, just drop me an email and I'll hook you up. Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. On today's show, we're going to be giving you our breakdowns and predictions of course, Deontay Wilder against Luis Ortiz, but also the HBO card, the big fight, Dmitry Bivol against Sylvain Barrera, and the return of Sergey Kovalev and his opponent. We'll chat about that. Also, I'm going to touch briefly on the undercard for Ortiz and Wilder, as well as the return of Kell Brook. But first, and Dax Khan will be joining us a little bit later, getting his thoughts and predictions. But first, I wanted to get some news out of the way. According to multiple reports, Top Rank offered Manny Pacquiao. Now, Manny Pacquiao is still under contract with Top Rank. There's been some rumblings that Manny Pacquiao and Freddie Roach have kind of been on the outs, and that Manny Pacquiao is considering kicking Freddie Roach to the curb, which, listen, I think Freddie Roach at this stage of his career is a bit overrated. But Manny Pacquiao's, performances in the ring have nothing to do with, Freddie Roach. But that's just my opinion. But apparently, Top Rank wanted Manny Pacquiao to fight as a co-main event, not the main event. Now, this is Manny Pacquiao, who's been fighting main events and pay-per-view events for years. Wanted him to fight as a co-main event against Mike Alvarado on the Terrence Crawford-Jeff Horn fight, which is going to be taking place in Vegas on April 16th. Now, if you recall, Jeff Horn was the guy who beat Manny Pacquiao for his WBO title. So, according to Camp Pacquiao, they said that was an insulting fight. So, quite honestly, I'm not sure why Manny Pacquiao is even considering fighting again. I mean, in the large scope of things, I think he's an all-time great fighter. I'm actually, right now, if I had to make the decision, and that may change in 5 years when they're both eligible, but right now, if I had to make a decision, I would actually put him above Floyd Mayweather in the all-time great category, despite Floyd beating him. And the reason is because of the excitement level and all the other great fights that Manny Pacquiao gave us. But that's neither here nor there because neither one of them are eligible for any kind of Hall of Fame. And as far as all-time greats, I like to let that sink in for 5 years after they're done. But considering the fight was insulting to Manny Pacquiao, joining me right now from a place that's got a lot better weather going on than what I got out my window is Sal Rocky Senecola. And Sal, what's your thoughts on Top Rank offering Manny Pacquiao a fight on the undercard of Jeff Horn, Terrence Crawford?
Well, I'll tell you, I think Manny Pacquiao should really. I know that's not really anything less than an insult to him, but he's got to really look at where he is at his career, at this point in his career. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Unless he came back to fight Floyd Mayweather as he professed and promised and wanted to do, there's no need for him to come back. And they're going to keep him around and give him empty promises, just as says he's going to be fodder for these young bucks coming up and doing anything else, and they're going to earn a name. And Manny Pacquiao was a stellar champion, a fighter, never walked away from anybody. And you know what? I think, in my opinion, I think he fought a couple of weight classes above his best, and certainly as a welterweight, I think he's proven what he could do. But I think it's time for him to either get out and do what he's got to do with his politics and his country, and enjoy life, and maybe be on standby with commentary and maybe training and maybe doing other things for the fight game. But you know what? I'd hate to see him just age before our eyes and become fodder for the Jeff Horns or the other guys that are coming up, and that's what's going to happen. You mark my words.
I think that I think he's already aged, and as far as the Mayweather reference you made, I think that if Mayweather wanted to fight, Pacquiao would certainly do it. That ball was in Mayweather's hands. But here's the truth. The sad truth is Manny Pacquiao has diminished to the point where he should be the second fiddle to Terrence Crawford and Jeff.
Oh yeah.
I mean that's the sad truth. And although
that's the sad truth.
He finds it insulting that the offer was made, as you allude to, I mean, that's the way the belt.
That's the way the game goes.
That's the way the speed bag bounces, man. Because the truth of the matter is, you're only as good as your last performance. He lost.
That's what I always say.
Hasn't fought. Last night I watched an old movie, The Joe Louis Story, and they focused on all his success. And the movie was in 1953, I think, is when it came out. So they really didn't even have all the real downslide, but it's the same story. I mean, a guy that slipped and needed the money, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, so another quick bit of news. The Jorge Linares Vasyl Lomachenko fight is still alive and well, according to multiple sources. We touched on this the other day. But the bottom line was originally Linares Vasyl Lomachenko, both sides wanted to fight, which would require Lomachenko moving up again. He's a two-time gold medal winner. He's won world titles at featherweight, junior lightweight, and now wants to get a title at lightweight. And the title he was seeking was against Jorge Linares. Now, Linares wanted to fight. The problem is the date in which they projected the fight was the same date that Golden Boy, who promotes Linares, had another show, and they didn't want to do a show to compete with it. So the bottom line is ESPN, who would televise this fight, is considering moving the time slot back, so it would be on earlier. This would give Golden Boy the opportunity to continue with their show, and in a sense would not be competing with themselves. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed, Sal, and hope that this fight happens. Vasyl Lomachenko, a lot of people think he's the pound-for-pound top fighter. Same thing we saw with Roman Gonzalez, Chocolito. Is Lomachenko moving up in too many weight classes? I mean, how many more can he move up? And Linares is no slouch.
No, he's not, and that's my biggest concern. When you have a fighter who just is the elitist in his weight group and the weight class, and that he can go on and he could be a world beater and beat anybody his weight, his natural weight where he's fighting at, I say. And then, because of the lack of opposition, we're going to say, hey, you could be a stellar star at this weight or that weight. That's what I was talking about Manny Pacquiao. What did Manny Pacquiao start out as a flyweight, a bantamweight? And he's fighting welterweight. That's 40 pounds over where he made his pro debut, maybe even more. And remember Clint Eastwood? A man's got to know his limitations. No, that would sound like Don Corleone. I'm sorry, I got my personalities mixed up. Anyway, I think that he's got to be careful. He's got to be careful. One weight class is okay. Two weight classes, you got to start letting the professor inside your head start talking to you a little bit, and take it easy, take it slow. And you know what, though, Bill? A man's body. When you're a teenager, you're a one weight, and it naturally fills, and you're coming into your own. You got muscle tissue, and you're forming into in your late 20s. You're getting solid. And you're in the fully grown mode with a man's body from a young man's body. That's all. So it depends, but I think he should be very cautious and very careful and look at how many weight classes he really wants to go from where he is the best right now, and arguably maybe one of the best right now in the sport of boxing, pound for pound.
We're going to be doing our Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz breakdowns and our final official predictions. That's coming up in a little bit. We're also going to be doing that with the other big fights this weekend. But first, let me get some emails out of the way, Sal. This first one's from Jesse. He says, hey, guys, here are my picks. Ortiz knocking out Wilder in 10. Jose Uzugai knocking out Durrell in 10. Kovalev knocking out Igor I'll get you his name, but Kovalev winning by a 5th-round knockout, and Bivol stopping Barrera in the 12th and final round. He says, yes, Ortiz is in shape, but does that still mean he will take a dive? He should not. He would get paid much more for the rematch against Joshua Parker winner and more. Bivol could be in tough against Barrera, but the skills and talent will overcome. Listen, we'll get to our full thoughts on both of these in a little bit. He says, what's your thoughts on wins by Danny Roman and Luis Nery? Luis Nery should face top guys like Magladano, Ray Vargas, Tapples, or even Danny Roman. I heard rumblings that Manny's leaving Freddie Roach. Yeah, we just talked about that. As far as the wins, Danny Roman looked good. Luis Nery, remember, he knocked out his opponent, Yamanaka, in 2 rounds, but he couldn't make weight, so he doesn't have the title anymore. I would definitely like to see Luis Nery against Danny Roman. As far as Magladano, Jesse Magladano, top fighter. I mean, all these guys, all these names that Jesse mentions here, Sal, they should all be fighting each other. I mean, once you become a champion, my hang-up has always been constant. Once you become a champion, there's no more, and I'm not suggesting that fighters aren't still developing. I've even said it myself with guys like Anthony Joshua, right? But the truth of the matter is, once you are a champion, we have to deal with all these multiple sanctioning bodies. We have to deal with all these guys running around saying that they're a world champion. At least one thing we shouldn't have to deal with. Once they become a world champion, all bets are off. They should be in line to face any and all comers. That's my thoughts. What do you think?
Bingo. I say that word again, bingo. I mean, it's so true. Billy, when you are a world champion, you're donning on that belt, and that's saying you are the best, the very best in your weight class when you put on that belt, although there's too many belts and who the heck knows. But the bottom line is that's what that belt replicates, and that's what it's supposed to be. So when you are that world champion and you're carrying that belt, you're supposed to be able to take on any opponent that is going to say, hey, I'm better than you, or I'm in line to get a title shot, and I want to fight you right now. I mean, that's the way it goes. That's the fight game. And, this is This is, you were referring earlier, about Manny Pacquiao. This is the fight game. It's a business. It's not a good, easy wallflower business. This is a tough business. People get hurt. People get their lives off track, destroyed, everything else. And you know what? This is the game that people choose to be a part of because they're passionate or they have something they want to feel and grab and take from the sport of boxing. So, you know what? It's hard line. It is what it is, and you don't have to put the fluff without the stuff. This is the real stuff.
The next email right here is from my man Jonathan from the UK. He says, "Hey, Billy C., I enjoyed your discussion Wednesday with Sal regarding the current state of the heavyweight division compared to previous eras and how the last time there was a truly good group of heavyweights fighting each other was the 70s. I largely agree with your and Sal's views on the 70s era heavyweight boxing with one glaring exception, that Muhammad Ali never rematched George Foreman. The one thing that I felt you didn't consider is how much bigger today's heavyweights are. If you look at the World Super Series Boxing Cruiserweight Tournament, that has been fantastic. I feel that since Lennox Lewis, heavyweights have become so big, there are just fewer of them because they are at extremes of human size, and most of the 70s heavyweights would be cruiserweights today, with the possible exception of Big George, who would not have been seen as big by today's standards. But I feel this move towards the 250-pound, 6'5" plus sized heavyweights has had a particularly negative effect on the state of American boxing, as most guys who are significantly taller than 6'4" are pushed towards basketball or football, and it's only when they fail to do so, fail in those sports, they turn to boxing. What do you guys think? First and foremost,
interesting.
We actually did discuss the size difference on yesterday's show. And I've always said that. I mean, Jack Johnson in the early 1900s was considered a monster. And he was 6 foot, slightly over 6 foot tall, weighed, a couple of 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 211 pounds in his prime. So, he wouldn't even be a big heavyweight by today's standards. And, of course, we specifically mentioned Rocky Marciano and Jack Dempsey as examples yesterday for the size. That's why I feel the cruiserweight division is so important. Why here in the States the fans don't embrace it like they do in other places. To me, it's just, stupidity. But the heavyweight division, like you say, Jonathan, definitely houses bigger and stronger guys, and I feel that a heavyweight has to be 6'5" or 6'4" and bigger, weighing over 235 pounds to be competitive. In addition to need skills. As far as the heavyweights, as far as Ali, let me just point out some facts here. Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman in October of 1974. To have a rematch, think about this and consider this about activity level. George Foreman basically went into retirement for a couple of years after that loss.
10 years.
Well, no, not yet. He came back in 1976, 2 years after that fight, and fought 4 times. Actually, 2 times in 1977. And then the second time, he fought 4 times in 76, trying to get back, stand up and, climb up the ladder. He fought twice in 77. And the second fight, which was his final fight before going away for 10 years, was when Jimmy Young beat the snot out of him.
Jimmy Young outboxed him.
In 1977. And that was the end of George Foreman until 1987. Right. Now, when you look at Ali on that timeline, after 1974, by the time George Foreman came back 2 years later, Ali had fought 6 times. He fought... in the order, Chuck Wepner, Ron Lyle, Joe Bugner, Joe Frazier, Jean Pierre Koopman, and Jimmy Young. Then,
how about Leon Spinks?
That was just until Foreman came back. Yeah. Then he fought in the remainder of 76. Going into the point where Foreman retired, he fought Richard Dunn, Kenny Norton, Leon Spinks. So I mean, just considering the amount of times that Ali fought during that time, I don't think it was a matter of Ali not giving Foreman a rematch, Sal. I think it was more, it just didn't work out because Foreman was so inactive during the end. And let's face it, that was the end those years were the dwindling down of Muhammad Ali.
They were, and the thing is, he still had the level of talent that provided him with those victories for the next couple of years, although he sustained the damage that he paid for later. But the bottom line is this. I remember going to the Fox Theater in Hackensack, New Jersey, with my father and a dear friend, Phil Corletta, to watch that fight with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. And I was the biggest Ali fan. And George Foreman, he, like you and I had talked about, before he was happy-go-lucky, jubilant George, selling a grill and smiling and loving people, he had a nasty persona, almost like a Sonny Liston-like kind of personality. He didn't say much. He was very, very dark, always looking to be in a fight. And he was I don't want to say nasty, but he was definitely not Mr. Personality at the time. And after that fight occurred, and Muhammad Ali just dismantled him in the 8th round and said, "Hey, I'm the champ again." I never heard the rumblings and the desire from George's camp, and maybe I was too young, I was only 14, to have a rematch. And that's the whole thing. You would think at that time, while the iron was hot, that either Muhammad Ali or George Foreman would have said, "Hey, we just did a great dance. Let's do another one." And so I don't know if it was lack of George Foreman's head at that time after he suffered his first defeat in the fashion where he did, and he just wanted to try and get back and his feet underneath him again and confidence level. I have no idea, but I do not remember hearing any rumbles of them trying to get back into the ring for a rematch. Do you?
No, I never did. I don't recall it. But like I just said, I mean, thanks for the email, Jonathan. It was a great email.
John.
But the truth of the matter is that Ali was still very active and
active and willing to fight anybody.
But he was fighting money fights. He was doing his tour. And George Foreman was kind of on the out. Listen, mentally he was crushed from that fight.
He was crushed. That devastated him.
Yeah. But I got one more email, and then we're going to take a break. Then we're going to start our breakdowns on all the fights. This last one's from my man Morgan. He says, "Hey, Billy C., why isn't every commission in boxing using instant replay? Every major sport uses technology to help their officials except boxing. Another area that boxing is behind other sports is not having a national commission with one set of rules. If we had one ethical commission in boxing, it wouldn't be as easy to be corrupt. Do you believe boxing will ever change for the better, or is corruption to be embedded into the sweet science? I would love to see boxing increase in popularity." Morgan, here's the thing. Number one, the state of New Jersey and my man Larry Hazard has incorporated instant replay. Not every state is doing it. There are some logistics involved. Number one, who does the camera? If they have a TV show going on, they'll have the camera, they'll have the technology to go right back to the instant replay. You have to be able to do it very quickly. Somebody has to request it. Somebody has to risk something. You can't have them requesting to look at something over and over. So some of the rules have to be ironed out. But I agree that instant replay for it was a cut caused by a headbutt or a punch. Was it a knockdown or not? Did he hit the ground? Those kinds of things need to be checked out via instant replay because the quality of the referees have certainly slipped. A lot of them aren't in position to see things, et cetera, et cetera. As far as I am against a national commission. And the reason why I'm against it and why I oppose it is because our government is more corrupt than the sport of boxing. I mean, let's be real. They can't even run the post office. You're going to expect them to control boxing? If you think that boxing is corrupt now, when politicians get in office where somebody throws them some money so that they can campaign, and then in return they do this and do that. Come on. We don't need that in boxing. Is corruption here to stay in the sport of boxing? Unfortunately, boxing is an easy sport to embed with corruption. There's two combatants. You can get to one side. It's been going on like that for years and years. I don't know if there's a correct fix. What do you think, Sal?
No, I think it is what it is. it's worked the way it's worked for the last couple of 100 years, and to think that the government getting involved, forget about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
you said, they can't even tie their own shoe.
That's true. Listen, one thing I will say, and we're behind, we got to take a break. But one thing I will say about the last email, I too would love to have boxing more popular, and I think there's an easy remedy to do that. Put on the good fights, exciting fights. Make the fighters, climb the ladder the way they used to, and let them meet the public. And what I mean by that is promoters need to promote. You need to know who's fighting. Half the people don't know the B side of a fight when we watch them on major cable networks. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Sal and I will start breaking down and giving you our predictions on all the big fights for the weekend. Don't go nowhere.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Hos Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Hos belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Hos' patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Hos belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the guy...
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. We're going to be giving you our breakdowns and predictions on the fights for this weekend. But first, there's a lot of topics, discussion, I should say, going on in our chat room right now. And I know that you're watching or listening to the show on either radio, TV, multiple streams. We're also simulcasting on Facebook, which incidentally, if you're watching or listening on Facebook, it's not the full video version. You got to go watch that on YouTube. But anyway, our official chat room is up on BillyCBoxing.com, and they're really discussing the possibility, Sal, of instant replay across the board. Now, Larry has, we'll talk to Larry on it, but remind me next week to let Larry explain how it works in Jersey. But I think it could work very easily. I think that if we took instant replay and made a couple of parameters, all right? Number one, you got to have, obviously, the filming and a advanced film crew to be able to give you the instant replay immediately. There has to be something that took place. It has to be limited. In my opinion, it should be used for two things. One, to determine if a cut was caused by a punch or a headbutt. And number two, if it was a knockdown or not. That's it. Everything else has to be left in the judge's hands. So if in a case where you have a cut and a referee says it was caused by a headbutt, I think that somewhere along the line there has to be a risk involved with the corner to say, hey, that was a punch. Maybe they risk losing that round. Maybe they risk losing a point for that round. So if they win the round 10-9 on the judge's scorecard and they gamble and say that wasn't a cut by a headbutt, it was a punch, and they're wrong, then it becomes a 9-9 round. They lose a point, okay? Or if it's the other way around, it becomes a 10-8 round. Same thing with a knockdown. Somebody has to challenge it. You have to limit it, and you have to put some kind of a risk versus reward on it, Sal, because if not, every single corner man is going to be, oh, no, wait, that wasn't a punch, and it will slow the game down. The other aspect of it is that a decision has to be made within 30 seconds. You got 1 minute to make the decision, and that's in between rounds. I think it could work. What about you?
I think it could, but I don't know how I feel about the price that someone's going to have to pay to say, hey, wait, that was a headbutt or this and that. Then it could also be said, well, hey, we're going to gain another point because we were right to begin with. I don't know if I would do that. I would think it would be limited. I think each corner should be limited to maybe one of each throughout the fight.
That could work.
Maybe one call of each throughout the fight, and I think that might be more.
So in other words, let the corner get one challenge per fight. Yeah, that would work. What I meant by risking.
No, I know.
You know what?
Otherwise, I'd be out there. Hey, he slipped.
No. But then you risk a point. If you're wrong, you lose the point. The person challenges it that loses the point.
I know. It's very, very good in all other ways. I would think that would be fair, and I follow it. But and it shouldn't be something that someone should have to pay for if they just want to see it. If it could be done within that minute, there's no interruption of the fight the way it should happen, then they could easily say, and the commentators could say, hey, we just reviewed it.
The commentator, remove the commentator, because I agree with what Larry Hazard says time and time again. The commentators got to shut the F up. They don't decide, and that's the problem with what's been happening with the sport. Commentator, the punch stats say that he beat the snot out of him. You got to remember how the punch stats are tabulated. You got two guys sitting on the ring, and it's their subjective opinion whether the punch was even a punch or not, and whether it landed. So you can't go by all subjectivity. You can't. But getting back to the instant replay, if you take the corners out of it, maybe have the referee ask for the replay or something. I agree with you that there should be a limited, that would work better. The only reason why I suggested risking something is because that would eliminate you calling for a replay after every single round. Like they do in football, they have to risk it. They risk a timeout. But I think I like your idea better, to be honest with you, that they're only allowed one or two challenges, or take the challenge out of the corner's hand and put it in the referee's hand. So I think that would work.
Yeah, I think so too. And then you'll have the referee. I think if the referee was the one to decide, I don't know if that'll work, because then you'll have the corners egging on the referee. Hey, ref, did you see that? You didn't see that. What are you, blind? Come on, let's get a replay. No, I think it has to be limited to each corner having a limit of what they want to call for.
Well, the other thing that they could do, Sal, is that they could do an automatic review of cuts and knockdowns. In other words, a cut is sustained. The referee calls it from an unintentional headbutt, and in between rounds, they make sure that it was not from a punch. If it was from a punch, they go and tell the judges and the referee, by the way, that was from a punch, and the story, it gets changed. Maybe that's the answer. You know what?
That might be the answer. Yeah. You have a special crew of professionals that are not part of the fight, not part of the game, not part of the announcing. They view the things, and they see. There's got to be a panel of three or so looking at it, everything closely, so they can discuss it, and they can later feed it to the audience and say, hey, we looked at the cut that occurred in round 2, and through our eyes, we see that it was an intentional butt, or we see that it was by an accidental butt, or by it was a punch, or he did not slip. It wasn't a slip on the water. He actually he lost his footing because he was off balance and he got dropped. So that that would be an easier thing too, that they could say throughout the fight, and they can go back and change the score. That's all.
Yeah, and you know something. If they did it for every single knockdown and cut, it would clean things up. That's the way to do it.
Yeah,
and just while we're talking about knockdowns, and you made me think of a point. A guy slips or he tangles up in his own feet and he goes down, and a lot of times the referee will say, that was a slip, or nope, he tripped over your feet or something like that. But what a replay could show is if a punch landed at the same time. Now, the truth of the matter is that if I'm throwing a punch at the same time you slip or get tangled up in your own feet, and I land that punch, even if it wasn't a significant punch, and you go down, I say that should be ruled a knockdown.
Me
punch
too.
was landed. You lost your balance, whether you were trying to avoid the punch or whether you slipped on a decal or water. That's not relevant. The truth of the matter is, as long as I land a punch and the result is you hit the canvas, that's a knockdown. And I think that a lot of times you'll see a fighter get tangled up in his own feet or something, and a punch is thrown. It grazes the fighter, and the referee calls it a slip when, in my opinion, it should be called a knockdown. And I think an instant replay would straighten that stuff up, too.
I think you're 100% right. That occurred about a week or two ago. I was watching fights. I think it was just 2 weeks ago. And I saw the guy, he was slipping, but he got hit. And they ruled it a slip. It wasn't a knockdown. But I clearly would have said he was knocked down. That was it.
No doubt.
But it would have been a 10-8 round right there.
Hey, listen, for all the affiliates, both radio and TV, we are not going to take a break here. I apologize. I know I did that yesterday too. But we're going to start breaking down our fights. I don't want to run out of time. So first fight that we're going to be talking about right here. And listen, there's so many good fights this weekend. We just don't have the time to break them all down. But the one I did want to give some time to, Sal, one of your favorite fighters, Kell Brook, returns to the ring. He is taking on Sergey Rabchenko in a fight that's Rabchenko, I should say. I thought it was Rabchenko, but it looks like Sergey Rabchenko. But he goes by Sergey Rabchenko, but his official name is Rabchenko, just in case you were wondering. But Kell Brook is fighting at 154 pounds. This is the first time in his career that he's done this. And I just have a quote real quick. He says, I've got the butterflies and nerves just like this is my first fight. I think I need to feel like that, though. Those nerves are going to make me sharper because I know that there's a lot at stake on Saturday night. I'm loving boxing again, and things can change. And I still feel that I got big fights left in me before I call it a day. I'd love to win a world title at super welterweight, junior middleweight. There was a list of fighters in front of us, and Rabchenko stood out. He's a dangerous fighter, and the fans might have let me off of fighting someone lesser than him, but I wanted to fight him because I need to come back in a serious fight to stay switched on and not cut corners in the gym. I love that comment from him.
Me too.
Because it shows that he wants to challenge himself. Exactly. And I like that. Now, when you look at the fight itself, I mean, listen, Kell Brook, amazingly enough, the computer already has him ranked at number 6 in the world at super middleweight. And you just heard that he never fought at super middleweight yet. So we'll see how that works out. But he's a former world welterweight champion and a former world middleweight title challenger. He's got a career record of 36 wins, 25 coming by knockout, and only 2 losses in which he was stopped both times. And, oh, by the way, both times he broke his orbital bone. He was knocked out by Triple G in 2016, and he was also stopped by Errol Spence Jr. Last year. So he's actually coming off back-to-back losses against 2 of the sport's top fighters. But prior to that, I mean, we all know what Kell Brook accomplished in the ring. He's a fighter that I thought is tops, really. He beat Sean Porter in a close fight to win the title. He had several defenses. Then he stepped up and fought Triple G, and he was doing well until his face crumbled. And then the other orbital bone was destroyed in his fight against Errol Spence. Now he steps in the ring with Sergey Rabchenko, who's ranked at number 38 in this division. He's a former European junior middleweight champion. And when you look at his resume, he's fought some tough guys, but his record is 29-2. With one loss coming by knockout, and that was against Tony Harrison. The other loss was against Anthony Mundine in a split decision. He had a win against Bradley Price, who was a decent fighter. Rabchenko's a tough guy, but I don't put him in the same class as a Kell Brook, Sal. Even though Kell Brook is moving up in weight, significantly, even though he fought at middleweight, he's still moving up into the junior middleweight, division, and he hasn't really. Listen, it's a dangerous fight, but it's the right fight for Kell Brook. I don't know what else to say. I'm picking Kell Brook. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think you said it right there. I think it's the right fight for Kell Brook. He's going to be tested. He's challenging himself. He's stepping up in a weight class, which I think is a natural for him. 154 would be good. He's a taller guy, heavier guy. I think a welterweight, he definitely could outgrow that, and he has. My concern is this: some fighters are just not built for the game, and I'm not suggesting or saying that because I'm not a doctor, and I didn't stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night. But the bottom line is, when you break two orbital bones, was the first break that Triple G crushed on his cheek? Did that also weaken the other structure, the other side of the face that allowed the other orbital bone to break in the next fight? He fought two warriors, two world beaters, and he had a double crack on his eye, his orbital bones. I mean, that's tough. And now what do they have? Plates in them? I don't know. And what if he gets hit there again? These are going to be things that's going to go through his mind. And he's going to protect that. He's going to be apprehensive maybe to a degree. I'm sure he's getting it tested throughout his sparring for preparation for this fight. But I just am concerned more so about his mental state and what's going to happen physically. Will it be more vulnerable? When you get cut in a fight, supposedly the scar tissue where the cut was, it heals stronger. It's tougher. It's very unlikely that cut's going to open up again. It doesn't mean the tissue around the cut's not going to sustain and get pulled and stretch and rip. But that I don't think that happens in the orbital bones when that breaks the first time. I don't think it comes back stronger. Maybe it does. I don't know. But I'm more concerned about where he's going to be positioned and how much longer is he going to fight. And we'll have to see if he gets through this fight unscathed, and so I'm more all eyes on his eyes for me.
Yeah, typically when a bone breaks, where it heals,
does heal up.
It's stronger. But I agree, a lot of it's mental with him, and I think that it's going to be an important fight for him as his career moves on. But I agree with him; he's got plenty of time left.
Yeah.
The next fight. Okay, so now we're going to focus basically on the two big fight cards here in the States on the premier cable networks. We'll start off with HBO first. And really what I think is possibly the second most competitive fight of the weekend. And that's Sullivan Barrera going up against Dimitri Bivol. Now, Sullivan Barrera, this guy is no joke. Now, he's never won a world title, but he is ranked at number 4 in the world at the light heavyweight division by the computer. He's 6'2". He's got a 73-inch reach. He's 36 years old. Now, keep that in the back of your mind. 36 years old, Cuban fighter. 21 wins, 14 coming by knockout. He's got one loss on his resume, and that was to Andre Ward. So you can't really complain about that. He's won 114 rounds with a 64% knockout ratio. One thing that sticks out for me with Sullivan Barrera is that he does seemingly have more knockouts than you usually see with Cuban fighters. Now, with that said, he did fight some tough opposition on the way up, some experienced fighters early on in his career. But the big fights that stick out to me, despite being shot at the time, Jeff Lacey, he stopped him in 4. Karol Murat, who, if you recall, fought B-Hop at one time, he stopped him in 5. And I think that V. Shabransky was a big win for him, knocked him out in 7. I mentioned that he lost to Andre Ward. And then let's keep in mind, his last 2 fights were against good opposition. Felix Valera is 15-1. He won a 10-round decision with him, and he schooled Joe Smith Jr. In a 10-round fight as well. So this guy has climbed the ladder. He's been bypassed for a world title shot a couple of times. And now he's earned a shot against a young, tough fighter like Dmitry Bivol. Dmitry Bivol is, surprisingly enough, ranked behind Sullivan Barrera at number 12 by the computer. He is the current WBA world light heavyweight champion. He's 6 foot tall. He's only got 12 pro fights under his belt, 12-0 with 10 knockouts, giving him an 83% knockout. Substantially younger, almost 10 years to the day. He's 27 years old. His last 3 fights of his 12 professional fights were against good opposition, stopping all 3, Samuel Clarkson, Cedric Agnew, and Trent Broadhurst. But none of those 3 are the level of Sullivan Barrera. I'll tell you that. Now, I do have a quote from both Barrera and Dmitry Bivol. Bivol says, "I hope we make a good fight and people will be glad afterwards." Barrera says, "This is a dream fight for me, fighting for a title. I hope Saturday night we could put on a great show for the boxing fans." It seems like blue-collar comments for 2 blue-collar guys. This is a tough one for me to pick, to be honest with you, Sal. Sullivan Barrera has shown me more than Dmitry Bivol. But Dmitry Bivol has also impressed. The fights that he went the distance with, those were the ones that I'm trying to take a look at. But like I said, Barrera is a different class of fighter. Here's the thing. Andre Ward couldn't knock Barrera out. Andre Ward did knock out Sergey Kovalev. So that means he's got the punching power to knock out Bivol. I think that this is going to be a clear case of age versus youth one more time. Sullivan Barrera has the skill. He needs to use it. He needs to use the ring. He needs to use his boxing ability, and he could win this fight. My official prediction is I'm going with the Ute. I'm taking Dmitry Bivol in what could be a signature fight for him. And on the downswing, if this guy loses to Barrera, you're going to see Dmitry Bivol rebound and rebound quickly. That's my prediction. I'm picking Dmitry Bivol by beating Barrera. I'm not going to call a knockout. I'm not going to call a decision, but I do think it's going to be an exciting fight. What's your thoughts?
I'll tell you, it's a tough one. They're both good. And now Dmitry Bivol, he's 12-0, right?
That's correct.
Unbelievable. How many knockouts?
10.
10. And this is a young career fighting for a title. And I'll tell you what, he's already made a name for himself with 12 fights. I mean, that's the state of the fight game, ladies and gentlemen. It's unbelievable. 12 fights. He's fighting for a title. Oh, man, it blows my mind. I tend to like the experience and the learned behavior of a fighter in his later years, and certainly at 36 years of age. Even though in my era that would have been considered an old man, I think today, by today's standards, I think Sullivan Barrera has a couple of years left, and he has a lot to prove. He's only had his one defeat against one of the arguably the world's greatest pound-for-pound fighter, and he was not stopped, as you pointed out, against Andre Ward. So I like Sullivan Barrera's resume. I like what he's been through already. And it's going to be a case of, hey, I've been there, done that. And I think in any of the heat of the action, he's going to be more familiar with the territory, and it's going to be more comfortable for him than it might be for the first time with Dimitri Bivol. So I'm going to take the veteran, I'm going to take the experience, and I'm going to take the wisdom and the learned experience of Sullivan Barrera to beat Dimitri Bivol.
The next fight that we're going to pick is the main event on that card. Sergey Kovalev going up against Igor Mikhalkin. And I'm probably murdering it, but a couple of quotes. Mikhalkin says, I'm very happy to be in New York and fighting at Madison Square Garden, and I hope that on Saturday we will have a wonderful, exciting fight for the fans. On the other hand, Sergey Kovalev says, I'm really happy to be back at New York. This is right now my favorite place to fight right now. I can say that we met with Igor since the amateurs when I was 17 years old. We're friends, but only friends can beat each other and won't be upset on each other. You know what I mean? I can say that. And be sure on Saturday night, it's going to be an interesting fight because we're going to beat each other very, very hard. And my goal is to defend my title. His goal is to get the title. It'll be a very interesting fight. Thanks for the support. I love the boxing fans. You know, a little tear is welting up in my eye as I speak. But as
Really,
I
me
break
too.
down these fights, when you take a look at Igor Mikhalkin, he is ranked number 11 in the world at cruiserweight, at light heavyweight. I'm sorry. He's currently the IBO World Light Heavyweight Champion, so that does bring something in as far as I'm concerned. He's 32 years old. He is 6'1". He's a southpaw. His record to date is 21 wins, 9 coming by knockout, and 1 loss in which he was not stopped. It was a decision loss that he lost to Kumanensky back in 2010, so it's been quite a while. His last 2 fights were against decent opposition in Dogdu Nagambu and Thomas Uzenthusen, where he picked up the IBO title. That's where Mikhalkin hit the got on the map, so to speak. He steps in the ring, obviously, with a fighter we're all very well aware of in Sergey Kovalev. At one time, I thought he was the guy in the light heavyweight division. I was very upset with the decision that he made and his team made in the last fight against his second fight against Andre Ward, in which he was stopped in the 8th round. He's currently the WBO World Light Heavyweight Champion, ranked at number 2 in the world in the light heavyweight division. He's 6 foot tall. He's an orthodox fighter. 31 wins, 27 by knockout with 2 losses and only 1 stoppage. That was at the hands of Andre Ward, and he also has a draw early in his career. His last fight for the vacant light heavyweight title was against Vasyl Lomachenko, a guy that we talked about earlier with the Bivol Barrera fight. Listen, I don't want to discredit Mikhalkin, but Sergey Kovalev is going to win this fight. I don't need to go any deeper into breaking it down. I'm picking Sergey Kovalev in a fight. I'm not sure how it's going to help him, but I'm picking Kovalev. What's your thoughts?
You know, it's a tough one. I mean, you know, here's what I loved Kovalev. I thought he was all that he was. And, you know, when I saw what you saw, without being on a seesaw, Andre Ward drop him with a body shot, and Kovalev on the canvas, on all fours, and then getting up off the canvas slowly, not even standing, and just waiting for the ref to count him out. I saw something there that he did not want to continue, did not want to go on. But what that does, it tells me that a fighter at a certain stage of his career has decided to give up the fight, and he lost that fight by giving up. He did not want to. Maybe that body shot was devastating. Maybe it was crushing. Maybe it took everything out of his legs and everything else. But what got to me was his not wanting to even try to stand up, almost just waiting for the referee to finish the count to get the misery or the pain over with. And I have a real hard time going forward, watching Kovalev and thinking that he's going to get through all opposition, and when he faces adversity, what happens? Now that he tasted defeat on that level and gave up the fight, does that happen again? Is it easier the second time? Or did he learn from that? Is he going to come back stronger and be relentless and say, I'm going to compensate for that? So, I don't know what this McColgan is capable of doing, and I'm sorry if I just bastardized his name, but I'm no longer a Kovalev fan. I wish him well, but like I said, when I see quit in a fighter, then who knows what's going to happen in the next fight. And the last fight he went out there, yeah, he destroyed the guy. It wasn't big opposition, and maybe this is the case here. I'm going to stay neutral. I don't know which Kovalev is going to show up. And if he ever gets tested again, does he do the fight or flight? Is he going to fight or is he going to quit again? I can't follow him anymore. I'm not a big Kovalev fan anymore.
The next fight that we're going to take a look at, we're jumping over to the other card. And listen, I'm not going to give it much time because I think the Durrell brothers they're the worst thing for boxing. Can't stand them. And the only reason why I'm going to give a prediction is because I'm going against Durrell. All right, Durrell is number 6. He's currently the IBF World Super Middleweight champion. I think that this guy has been a terrible influence on the sport of boxing. Him, his brother, his whole team can't stand the Durrell team. And I'll tell you right now, Jose, usual guy who's 27 years old, ranked number 23 at super middleweight, which shocks me. He's a world title challenger. I think he's going to make amends. I'm picking Jose in this one. I got nothing else to say. What's your thoughts on that one?
I'm going to go with Uzi guy too. I think he's got to get out there and more to prove, and he's just going to shut it down real fast. I think he's going to try and go out there and no excuses, just do his job and have a night at work. That's it.
All right, so here we go. We're going to go with the big fight. We've been talking about this fight for weeks. We got Luis Ortiz going up against Deontay Wilder. I have some final quotes from both Wilder and Ortiz. Now, we haven't been short on quotes with these two guys throughout the coming weeks, throughout the last few weeks. Deontay Wilder has been, if I call him a motor mouth, it's an understatement. We talked yesterday extensively about how I feel that a lot of these comments are his way of motivating himself. Some of them just don't make any sense at all with what he says. And the biggest reason is he still thinks that his resume speaks for what he terms is his greatness. I find that sad. It's the best way I can describe it. Anyway, some final quotes from Deontay Wilder. The reason why I wanted this fight is not only do I think Ortiz is one of the best technical fighters in the division, but he's the boogeyman that everyone is running from. Champions have avoided him, and I've always said I was the best, and this is my chance to prove it. This result isn't up to anyone but me. Every time I get under the bright lights, I give the fans what they want to see. This is the best versus the best, and that's what boxing deserves. I don't know. I think it's definitely a fight we wanted to see. It's just a little later than we wanted to see it. He says, I had all the excuses in the world to run away from this fight after he failed the test. There are a lot of good up-and-coming heavyweights out there, but I wasn't interested in them. This fight is how I prove that I'm the baddest man on the planet. My opinion on that comment is, yes, I agree that he didn't take just some slug heavyweight to fight. By beating Luis Ortiz does not prove that he's the baddest man on the planet, in my opinion, because Luis Ortiz isn't the baddest man on the planet. To be the baddest man on the planet, you got to beat who people think are the baddest man on the planet. Now, maybe that definition is not fully clear yet, and maybe the result of this fight and then subsequently the fight between AJ and Joseph Parker will define who many believe is the baddest heavyweight on the planet. So this fight does have a lot of implications to it, despite, if we all think that it's taken place a little too late. He says, on Saturday, with all the personal things aside, it's going to be an honor to fight Luis Ortiz, man to man, father to father. I know that family is his motivation, just like it is for me, and that's why I am blessed with this opportunity. I'm sorry. He says, and that's why I blessed him with this opportunity. This guy thinks who the hell he is. I mean, pretty soon he's going to be saying that he wants to start wearing sandals and walking on water too. I mean, come on, man. He's blessed. That's why I blessed him with this opportunity. You know what? Wilder is just mentally disturbed if the way he has put himself so much above everyone else in the heavyweight division and has no substance to stand on. This has to be a motivational tool for himself. I'm sorry. But anyway, he says, the exciting thing about Saturday is everyone is going to come and see what I'm capable of doing. Too bad we haven't seen it yet. He says, Luis Ortiz is determined to get my title. This will be my 7th defense, and if I enjoyed every one, it's a lot of responsibility, and I take it seriously. You'll all see on Saturday night why I've said the things I've been saying. Everyone knows what I'm expecting Saturday night. I can't say it enough. I've knocked every opponent out for a reason, except for one. I plan on continuing my knockout streak. That's what I do, and that's what I'm best at when you're given punching bags. Yeah, this is the best fight here in boxing that can be made. It doesn't get any better than this. On Saturday night, you have to be here in person because you won't want to miss anything. You never know what you'll see, but Saturday night, it'll be bombs away. He's saying that you need to see this in person because, as we all know, the ticket sales have been very slow. It's more than half available, and this is not the best fight in the heavyweight division that can be made. Let's make no mistake. The best fight in the heavyweight division that could be made right now, we all know, is Deontay Wilder against Anthony Joshua. Anyway, Luis Ortiz, he says, I never say anything bad about fighters because inside the ring anything can happen. He says, I respect everyone who steps in the ring, but this is my opportunity. This will be my time. Deontay's a great champion, but this is my chance. Like I've always said, this is my time, and it's going to be a great triumph. This is for all of Cuban boxing, and I will make my country proud. This is going to be like two trains on the same track about to collide. I'm going to win, and I'm going to take this belt. This is not a video game. This isn't using controllers. You have to actually step into the ring with me on Saturday night. Deontay is scared. He's talking a lot of nonsense. He's worried about what I'm going to do. This is my time. I'm going to show it to everyone. I'm 100% ready to go. Sparring has been amazing, and I'm totally prepared for Deontay Wilder. Deontay's biggest mistake is that he talks too much. I looked into his eyes, and I knew that I'm not going to lose this opportunity. I'm going to be the first Cuban and the first Latino born outside this country to win a title. Saturday night will be historic. The public gave me this opportunity to fight for the title, and I'm going to beat him for his belt. I'm going to make the most of my chance, and I will knock Deontay out.
Wow.
Before I get to my actual breakdowns and stuff, Sal, I wanted to get your thoughts on the final quotes. I mean, we've heard a lot from these two guys over the last several weeks. Do you read anything into those quotes? Is there something that you're looking at that may change your thought process or what? I mean, is it just them going through the motions with these quotes, or what do you think?
No, I believe in their heart of hearts that they truly believe that. And, you have to look at a motivation or a driver. What is going to be the incentive for each fighter? And certainly to be the world heavyweight champion is incentive enough. But then you look at family, money, you look at pride, you look at other drivers there and incentives that why is somebody going to put themselves through what they're going to do? The prize has to be worth the price. And, I mean, Ortiz said it outlined perfectly. I mean, he wants to be the first non-born in U.S. Cuban here to take a title. And he would be a heavyweight championship. Now, Is that enough? And are those words really some of the sustaining fuel for his fire? I don't doubt that they are. Is he capable of doing it? Any fighter, any given night can do it. But and Wilder, Wilder we're listening to, and he's, whether it's self-proclaimed or whether it's to bolster up his own confidence, both of these fighters, I think in their heart of hearts, truly believe that they are going to beat the other. So that right there should be an indication of a preview that we are going to have a good fight, however short it may be. I did take one thing that Ortiz said. Sometimes when you can look into a fighter's eyes, that's why you have a stare down. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, sometimes it's very revealing to the other fighter. Now, what I mean by that, it could be how any fighter interprets what they saw. So if whatever Ortiz thinks he saw, looking into Wilder's eyes, hey, he's going to use that for fuel his fire, and he's going to go with that belief ability that, hey, there's going to be a fracture in his armor, and I'm going to expose it. Now, when he does try to do that, and Wilder says that's not really what you saw, but I'm going to answer back, and I'm going to knock you out, that's going to be where the rubber meets the road. So both fighters said the necessary things, or they had to reveal or give us the idea of what they're feeling and what they believe in. And I believe in my heart of hearts that both of these fighters truly believe that they're going to beat the other.
We are going to let's take a break right now. When I come back, I will break down the fight, give you my official prediction, and so will Sal. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Hos Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Hos Belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Hos' patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Hos Belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Hologram USA presents a proposal to all investors. Hologram USA is an innovative three-dimensional patented technology that shifted the paradigm in media technology. Our patented hologram technology that brought you Tupac and Coachella, Whitney Houston, Billie Holiday, and many more is integrating live performances to bring your favorite past and present entertainers beyond your imagination. Invest in the patented technology before the banks scoop up all the stock. Invest in Hologram USA today. Hologram USA Flagship Theater, located on Hollywood Boulevard's Walk of Fame, is the first of many to come. Call now to be part of the explosive growth. Pick up the phone. Dial the number on your screen now. Invest in Hologram USA today. Call the number on your screen right now to learn about this investment opportunity.
Call 800-624-1673.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And right now I'm going to finally get to breaking down and giving you my official predictions for the big World Heavyweight Championship title fight that's taking place this Saturday at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, between Deontay Wilder, who's currently the WBC World Heavyweight Champion, and Luis Ortiz, a guy that has never fought for a world title, but a lot of people feeling that he's one of these guys that people are avoiding. Luis Ortiz, let's start with him. Luis Ortiz, we gave you the quotes and stuff. I had the privilege of calling not one but two of his fights. And somebody made a comment about him yesterday saying that, this is a guy that's lazy. He doesn't come to fight and everything. And I would agree with that. I noticed that. As a matter of fact, we had Alex Papali on yesterday. And, we both kind of noticed that when we saw him when I called the first fight at a baseball stadium down in Florida. This was a guy that came with all the best of everything and just seemed like he was kind of pompous and, fought to his level of opposition, which is an important point. When you look at his level of opposition, really, nobody jumps out. I mean, a couple of guys like Burt Cooper and Zach Page are tough opponents. He fought them early on, and he stopped both of those guys, but they were early on. Luis Ortiz is listed as 38 years old. He's more like 44 or 45, in my opinion. He's ranked at number 4 in the world at heavyweight, which is important because Wilder's ranked at number 3, which I think is pretty cool that we got the number 3 and number 4 fighting each other. Luis Ortiz is a southpaw. That's another interesting factor that Deontay's going to have to overcome. He's not a giant at 6'4". He's a giant compared to me and Sal, but he's not a giant in the realm of heavyweights today. His last 6 fights, he's weighed in between 230 and 242 pounds. With some of the photos I've seen of him over the last couple of days, he looks like he's in phenomenal shape. I don't care about the weight. He looks like he's in phenomenal shape, so I really don't care what he comes in at. His record is 28-0, with 24 of his wins coming by knockout. As a professional, he's fought 123 rounds. His biggest fight, in my opinion, was against Bryant Jennings. He weighed 239 pounds for that fight, and he had a 10-pound weight advantage over Bryant Jennings. Now, if you keep in mind, Deontay Wilder doesn't weigh that much. So the weight advantage, so to speak, will actually go to Luis Ortiz. Whether he can do anything with it or not, I don't know. His arm reach is 84 inches. Guess what? That's an inch longer than Deontay Wilder's. And for a guy that I feel that has better boxing ability, I think that that's an important statistic, even though it's only 1 inch. When you look at the last several fights of Luis Ortiz, he like I said, I was ringside for the Bryant Jennings fight, and that was his signature fight. But that was in 2015. He did beat and stop Tony Thompson, who was making a run again in the heavyweight division, but Tony Thompson was 40 years old. He won a unanimous decision with Malik Scott. Now, Malik Scott came to fight that night and also came to survive, unlike what he did against Deontay Wilder, looking for a place to go to sleep. David Allen was an up-and-coming young fighter when Luis Ortiz fought him and knocked him out in 2016. And his last fight, make no mistake, don't go by the record, don't go by the size, don't go by anything. Daniel Martz is nothing less than a human punching bag, and Luis Ortiz took care of him to set up the WWE scene when he called out ringside, just happened to be Deontay Wilder. Now, when I look at Deontay Wilder, listen, I've talked a lot about Deontay Wilder. I don't have anything against him personally, and I really wish that he wasn't the person that he tries to be. I think that if he had it toned down a little bit, I think he would be more likable, and I think it would help him. He's with a terrible promoter in Lou DiBella. Nothing against Lou, but Lou doesn't really do anything for these guys. Al Heyman is his so-called advisor. He hasn't done anything for Deontay Wilder except take money out of his pocket. Deontay Wilder is the WBC World Heavyweight Champion, 6'7". He's going to have a 4-inch, a 3-inch, height advantage over Luis Ortiz. But like I mentioned before, he's going to have a 1-inch disadvantage in the reach. He's 39-0. 38 of those coming by knockout. The only person to ever go the distance was Berman Stavern when he fought for the title initially. At that time, we thought Berman Stavern was a good fighter. We've learned that that really wasn't the case. When I look at Deontay Wilder's resume, I give him credit for 3 wins on that resume of 39 fights. I give him credit for Spitzka. Spitzka was not a great fighter, but an equally talented fighter, and Deontay Wilder almost killed him with the knockout. Even though Chris Arreola was way past his prime and was nothing less than a punching bag, I give Deontay credit for beating him. He did what he was supposed to do. He made Chris Arreola quit. And to be honest with you, Gerald Washington, even though he was a coddled fighter, still posed a threat to Deontay Wilder, and Deontay dispatched him. The last fight that he had against Berman Stavern was a complete joke. I give him 0 credit for that. The Johan Duhaupas and the Eric Molina fights, those are the fights that made me wonder about Wilder. He should have taken those guys out. Duhaupas is a tough guy, takes a lot of punishment, but doesn't offer anything back. It's very similar to Eric Molina. And what Deontay Wilder did was just came out there to blow them away like he was supposed to do. In his mind, that's what he does. Mike Tyson used to do that too, but Mike Tyson had a lot more skill set behind him. Listen, I watched a lot of tape of Deontay Wilder over the last 2 weeks, and frame-by-frame tapes of some of his early fights and even some of his later fights, and I noticed a lot of things that are going to hurt him in his fight on Saturday night. And the most glaring thing is really his positioning. This guy has terrible footwork, and his hands are never up to protect himself. Against the competition that he's been in the ring with for 39 fights, it hasn't exposed him. Either guys that are finished, guys that didn't have the skill set to begin with, guys that weren't even there to fight. None of them took advantage of the openings that Deontay gives to fighters. If you go back and watch those fights closely, you'll see his hands are down. He's got one thing on his mind, knocking out that opponent. We've referred to him based on an email as a drunken octopus-style puncher, which is true. And yes, when you have that power, which Deontay clearly has, you're always running into the risk as an opponent to get caught by one of those hard punches. But the fact remains that a good quality boxer will be able to avoid those punches, get inside, and land because the openings will be there. When I look at Deontay Wilder, I see fights that he should have taken. I see fights with guys like Povetkin that he should have fought, even Bryant Jennings. I wanted to see him fight Dominic Brazil. I wanted to see him fight Pulov. I wanted to see him fight Andy Ruiz. And the biggest name on his list that he turned down, the biggest payday of his career, he was offered $5 million to fight Dillian White, and he chose not to. There's a reason for this. And there's a reason why his management keeps telling him, you know, to hold off, don't take this, don't take that. This isn't because he's the best guy on the planet. He's not the baddest man on the planet. This is a big fight for Deontay Wilder. Despite Luis Ortiz being older and, not fighting the level of opposition that maybe he should have, et cetera, this is a huge fight, regardless if it's taken place late. How do I see this fight going? Well, listen, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Luis Ortiz is the way more talented fighter. Deontay Wilder is a one-trick pony, punch and power. I don't know if he's going to listen to Mark Breland, who is his trainer. Mark Breland's a great trainer. We got to see a good jab against Berman Stavern, not once but twice. The second time, it didn't take him long to finish him off. Luis Ortiz, You're not going to be able to do that with him. If Deontay Wilder jumps all over Ortiz early in the fight, I think that's his chance of winning the fight. The only chance Deontay Wilder has of winning this fight is early in this fight, within the first 3 rounds. Because if this fight goes on after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds, you're going to see Luis Ortiz slowly take over this fight. Conditioning might be a problem. Body work might be a problem. All for Deontay Wilder. My official prediction in this fight, Luis Ortiz in a major upset. You heard it here first. Not only do I think Luis Ortiz is going to win this fight, I think he's knocking out Deontay Wilder. I am predicting Luis Ortiz to stop Deontay Wilder and totally mix up the heavyweight division by a late round stoppage somewhere around the 10th round. This is going to be a historical fight, and you're going to see that in the overall picture, when we are talking about this 2 years from now, that this particular fight with Deontay losing is going to be the best thing for Deontay Wilder, not only for his career, but for his bank account. You watch. Deontay's going to lose this fight, but he'll get back up on his horse. He'll become a better fighter, and he will become a champion again. It just won't be against Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker, or Deontay or Luis Ortiz on Saturday night. I'm picking a huge upset, Luis Ortiz by stoppage, late round. Sal, what's your thoughts?
Wow. I loved how you broke it down, and I concur and I agree with a lot of what you said. I'm going to say what I have said for a while. I don't think we have had the chance to see the best Deontay Wilder as of yet. I think there's more to him than what we've seen. I think he fights at the level of opposition that he needs to beat, and with the style he does need to beat. I think he's been schooled well by Mark Breland. I think he's capable of a lot more. And I think as the level of his opposition is going to be such as the Luis Ortiz opponent, I think we are going to see the best Deontay Wilder we have yet to see. I truly believe that you made a good statement. I think Deontay Wilder is going to jump all over Luis Ortiz. And I think if he catches him early, it's going to be leaving Luis Ortiz in a bewilderment that's going to say, what just happened? I see either Deontay Wilder knocking out Luis Ortiz within 3 rounds, or I see Deontay Wilder winning this fight by knockout before the end of the 6th round. That's what I see.
Well, I think that the only chance, like I just said, the only chance for Deontay Wilder is to jump all over Ortiz and knock him out real early, and then we'll hear bomb squad. We'll see him jumping, pounding his chest, being
as he should. Why not? Luis Ortiz is a formidable opponent, and I think Deontay Wilder, as I said, I think there's more to his bag of tricks than what we've seen, and I think he's more than capable. And I think if he's ever been pressed or pressured, I believe Mark Breland knows what he has in his fighter. He wouldn't have stuck around this long if he didn't.
Just remember, Mark Breland's not fighting, Sal.
No, I know that. Well, I know that. And you know what? To Breland's credit, he was a very good fighter. I mean, how many times did he win the Golden Gloves? And he did well as a pro. I mean, he's another fighter who fought at Ice World at once or twice. But he was not a world beater. He was as a pro. As an amateur, yes, but he, there's some styles that are made for the amateurs and some styles that are made for professional fighting. But it doesn't mean he's not capable of training and seeing on a fighter and bringing the best out of a fighter. I think they've had a long relationship, and I certainly know Mark Breland's not going to be in the ring with him on a level of fighting, but he's going to be there for the tutelage, for the support, and for the direction. And he's going to be able to spot that. I think Mark Breland is fantastic as that. I think he's a great trainer. I think he could see and assess very quickly. And from his years of experience, I think he can definitely articulate that and get into Wilder's to keep him on track, if you will. That's why they've had such a long relationship as trainer-fighter.
Yeah, but let me throw you something there.
Right.
Whether this isn't about Mark Breland.
No, it's not.
And my point there, Sal, is that Deontay Wilder, and we all agree that he really believes all these things he says, and with that said, my question, and the reason why I'm picking Luis Ortiz, is because I don't believe that Deontay Wilder will actually listen to Mark Breland when the going gets tough. If Deontay Wilder comes out like you and I both think he's gonna, trying to finish this fight early, and doesn't, and all of a sudden Luis Ortiz is still there by the 5th round, and Luis Ortiz is starting to land some punches, and Mark Breland's trying to tell Deontay, listen, you got to start jabbing, you got to start moving, you got to start doing this, and the other thing. Deontay might listen to it, but all he's going to be thinking is, oh, my God, this guy's still standing. I've hit other fighters with this same punch many times, and they go to sleep. What's going to happen? What's happened? What am I doing wrong? Blah, blah, blah. He's not going to be listening to Mark Breland. Listen, I wish this fight was taking place 3 years earlier, but it is what it is. I think that, people talking, the fix, this and that, I thought that myself. But, the more I said it during this week about the financial, repercussions for this fight, Luis Ortiz is in position to make way more money than he possibly could have made by finding a soft place to sleep like Stavern. Stavern wouldn't have. Stavern wins that fight. He doesn't have the opportunities that Luis Ortiz does. Luis Ortiz has 0 opportunities if he loses this fight. This is a must-win fight for Luis Ortiz. It's not for Deontay. Listen, the large scope of things, I'm rolling the dice. Deontay Wilder should win this fight. There's no question about it. Deontay Wilder should win this fight. I'm not picking him because I don't think he has the talent to beat a technically sound fighter. And that's what he's going to be facing on Saturday night.
And I could follow your train of thought there. I think we're going to see the best Deontay Wilder as of yet. And I think he's going to rise to the occasion. I think he's going to do what he thinks he's supposed to do. And as I said, I think he's going to jump on Luis Ortiz, and I think he's going to either stop him very early within 2-3 rounds. And if not, I don't think Luis Ortiz will see the end of the 6th round.
The other thing you got to keep in mind, Luis Ortiz has to understand that he's not winning a decision. He can batter. It reminds me of Jimmy Young battering Muhammad Ali.
Oh, yeah.
In 1976 from ring post to ring post for 15 rounds, and Ali got the decision. Luis Ortiz could batter Deontay Wilder from ring post to ring post for 12 rounds and not get the decision. And another thing to consider, don't think for a minute that this fight won't end on some kind of flunky thing, a disqualification, a headbutt, let's go to the scorecard, something crazy. This fight has the makings of something controversial happening unless Deontay knocks him out quick. If Deontay doesn't knock this guy out quick, and we start seeing Deontay slowly deteriorating before our eyes, and Ortiz starting to pick up momentum, and as we start to see the fight swing to Luis Ortiz's favor, don't be surprised if something freaky happens. A cut, a disqualification, some kind of technical decision. They go to the scorecards, something crazy. Don't think for a minute that couldn't happen. That's why this fight has to end in a knockout for Luis Ortiz if he plans on winning. If he really wants to win this fight, he has to knock out Deontay Wilder. He really does. And so you have all of that going against you. Luis Ortiz has all of that. He's got the age, he's got the height, he's got punching power, he's got the fact that none of the judges are gonna root for him. They're not gonna score for him. Luis Ortiz is clearly the underdog. The only way he's gonna win this fight is exactly how I predicted. He's going to stop Deontay in the later rounds. And like I said, this is going to make Deontay Wilder a better fighter, Sal. If he loses, it'll make him a better fighter. If he wins, it'll make him worse. I agree.
If Deontay Wilder should lose, I know we're going to see a better fighter evolve out of Deontay Wilder. But not saying I'm going to predict he's going to win, and I still think he'll evolve to be a better fighter. I think he's still improving. That's what I'm trying to say. He's capable of doing it. I think he's still improving, and that's why I think he's got to. That's why I've said several times we haven't seen the best Deontay Wilder yet. We're going to, and I think over the next couple of fights we're going to be like, wow, okay, that's Deontay Wilder.
Well, you better see it. You better see the best Deontay Wilder Saturday. Because
as of yet, and that's what I'm looking for. We're going to see the best Deontay Wilder as of yet in his career. And I'm telling you, he's capable of it. And first of all, I like the fact this guy's an athlete, okay? Not that Luis Ortiz is not. But I like a fighter when he keeps himself in shape, when his body is responding to the way he can do things and move. And that tells me also for the long haul, you get to the 8th, to 10th, to 12th round. Deontay Wilder, I think he'll be in a better condition, better shape. And I think, if it does go to that distance and that long length of a fight, again, I think Deontay Wilder will be in better condition to put on a better level of performance than Luis Ortiz in the later rounds.
I don't know. Larry Holmes.
I know you don't know.
Larry Holmes.
Larry
Holmes never looked like he was in any kind of shape, and he went 15 rounds many times.
Larry Holmes was a great classic example. I know that.
Well,
I know that.
And I agree with you, and that's one of the things I do like about Deontay Wilder. He's always in good shape. But let me tell you something. Deontay Wilder, and nobody's done it to him yet, but Deontay Wilder's body is susceptible. Deontay Wilder only weighs, in his last fight he weighed 220 and 3/4 pounds. The heaviest he ever weighed was 230. So this is a guy that's 6'7". I'm 5'8" and I weigh 200 pounds. Yeah, I'm a fat bastard, but that's 30 pounds. This guy's a foot taller than me, a foot taller. And he's got muscle on top of muscle.
Got a foot up on you.
And he's only 30 pounds heavier than me. Come on, listen. The difference. The difference is that Luis Ortiz. Let me tell you another thing. Luis Ortiz has a great hook to the body. I'm telling you that Deontay Wilder is in trouble on Saturday night. If Luis Ortiz comes to fight, which I'm buying that he is.
He shouldn't be in the ring if he's not.
And let me tell everybody else. I've gotten emails. People were talking about it yesterday in the chat room, and they're all saying, "Oh, Ortiz got an injured hand. He's a big knot on his hand. It's injured. It's this. It's that." Let me tell you, I remember that knot on his hand when I was down and called the first fight. I distinctly remember that knot was on his hand, and I found it strange. But that's what that knot's from. Now, whether he injured that again or not, I don't know. But the truth of the matter is I think that it's going to be a good fight, and I do agree that the truth of the matter was that Deontay Wilder is going to have to perform in the best fight of his life to win on Saturday night, despite fighting an almost 50-year-old Luis Ortiz. I'm telling you, in order for him to win, he's got to fight his best fight, Sal.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. You rise to the occasion, and that's what I've been professing all along about Deontay Wilder. He's going to fight as good as the level of his opposition, and that's why we have not seen the best Deontay Wilder yet. I see Deontay Wilder displaying and putting on a good show and knocking out Luis Ortiz. That's my prediction. That's what I'm going to stick to until I'm proven different. I'm going to say Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, well, that's what makes boxing so good. And to be honest with you, Sal, when you have a fight that we disagree on, or I'm not just saying you and I, but people can make a comment and a prediction on both sides of the fence. You know what that tells us? That the fight is going to be a pretty good one. All the other fights were pretty much dead on the same, but we look at this fight, we see two different things. And I'm going to be criticized about Deontay Wilder. I'm waiting to see how long it is before someone says, "Oh, it's a racist move. You're not picking Deontay because he's black." Give me a break, all right? The reason I'm not picking Deontay is simple. I don't think Deontay Wilder has the pedigree. I don't go by just the numbers. I don't go by just 39 wins. I look at who those wins were against. I look, and when I tell you, this fight is important to the sport of boxing. It's important to the heavyweight division. I have spent no less than 6 hours rewatching Deontay Wilder's fights. Unfortunately for me, Luis Ortiz, his fights weren't as available, and they were against opponents that really I couldn't get what I got out of the fights against the fights with Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder has not gotten better in a sense for 39 fights. This guy, if you go back and look at his early fights, when he had 10, 15, 20 fights that are all available on YouTube, the truth of the matter is he hasn't really gotten better. The only thing that he's gotten better at is his mouth and jumping up. He can now jump up on that rope without any problems. The first couple of times he jumped up on that rope, he almost fell. But as far as his boxing ability, I haven't seen much improvement. I still see that terrible footwork. I still see lack of defense. I see him relying on that freakish, and he does have freakish knockout power. And Luis Ortiz has to be conscious of that. He's never been in with someone that I know of that could hit him as hard as Deontay can. And although I keep talking about Luis Ortiz's best performance, at least that I saw, was against Bryant Jennings. Bryant Jennings is more of an athletic fighter. He's a wear you down type of a fighter. Totally different than Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder is a seek and destroy fighter. I'm telling you, if Luis Ortiz can survive the first 3-4 rounds, you're going to see Deontay go to sleep. If Deontay can jump all over Luis Ortiz, this fight's going to end quickly. And I'm going to at least have to give Deontay the credit. And then one thing is going to become obvious to me, Sal. Not only the obvious that you were right and I was wrong, but the one thing that's going to become obvious to me is if Deontay Wilder charges and goes after Luis Ortiz to put him away, I know people are going to say, well, then I know it's a fix. And I alluded to that a couple of weeks ago, but I've changed my stance on that.
No, it's definitely not a fix.
I think that if Deontay Wilder goes all over Luis Ortiz and wins by a second, third round knockout or a quick stoppage, that's another thing you're going to have to keep an eye on, a quick stoppage. All those tangibles, Sal, quick stoppage, headbutt, disqualification, all those things, don't be surprised if we don't see it. But the other thing that will become blatantly clear to me if Deontay goes and destroys Luis Ortiz in 2 or 3 rounds isn't that he's that great, but that's what he would do against Anthony Joshua or even Joseph Parker, whoever wins that fight. That's his only way of fighting. And I think that's dangerous. I really do. I think that from a perspective of a talent level and evaluation, I would like to see Deontay come out and box a little bit. Show me that he's thinking rather than seek and destroy. What's your thoughts on that?
It's a good opinion. And, I'll tell you something. My opinion and my following Deontay Wilder changed about a year and a half ago. And you probably note that. I had a family come into my restaurant from his hometown. I don't mean New York either. And, they knew about the show. They knew about my experience with boxing. And they asked me about Deontay Wilder. And I said, well, like we've said, and I'm humbling myself right now. I said, I really haven't seen Deontay Wilder tested or enough to really give my opinion, but I don't think he's going to be at a certain level or against an Anthony Joshua or something here. And I might as well have told this family that they lost a family member. I mean, they were devastated. In other words, they believed the Kool-Aid. They believed everything about Deontay Wilder. And all the father of this family asked me to do is, Sal, pay attention, get to learn a little bit more about Deontay Wilder. You'll see why we are big fans and supporters of him. This was big. And I said, I will do that. I will do that. And I started studying Deontay Wilder. I started learning a little bit more about him. And I started empathizing and seeing. And as a fighter to a fighter, there's certain things I think that I could relate to. And that's why I turned around and I became a Deontay Wilder fan.
What did Deontay? I got to ask you.
No,
I want to know. I want to know, Sal, what Deontay Wilder has shown you, aside from his punching power and aside from his mouth. that would justify you saying, you know what, he's got potential? I want to know what. Tell me technically what you saw.
Technically, what I saw is just what I see in any good fighter. His desire to win and being a champion and coming back and trying to shut up the naysayers and not having been shown differently up to this point in his career. So I think I could understand his frustration. I think I could understand where he has to prove himself, and I think that's the mode he's in. He wants to shut up the naysayers. He wants to prove himself, and he's going to have the technical ability to do so once he has the right dance partner. I think it's in him. I think he just needs to have the right partner. And I think what he's going to do tomorrow night is going to provide a good base for him to become the Deontay Wilder he thinks he is, and I think it's going to prove to be an improved fighter as he continues. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
I think we haven't, like I said, we have not seen the best Deontay Wilder as of yet, and I think tomorrow night I'm sticking with Deontay Wilder. I think he's going to jump all over Luis Ortiz, and as you suggested, or as you first asked me, do you think that's a good style to do? Seek and destroy and do it right off the bat. Well, guess what? When you're an aggressive fighter like Deontay Wilder and you don't really want to do the feel-out period in boxing, be technical sound and this and that, and you want to be aggressive and you want to jump all over your opponent, you know, if it's going to be a good boxer, it's going to take the time and assess and just slip the punches and block the heavy blows and weather a storm. You know, it's two sides of the coin. I don't think Luis Ortiz is that level of a fighter to do just that just yet. And I do think that Deontay Wilder is going to catch him early with the barrage of punches. And if he jumps on his opponents early to catch him by the element of surprise and just set the tone, set the record, set it up, then that'll be how it's going to pan out. And that's why I say if he does jump on him and he gets to him early, this fight's not going to go more than 2 or 3 rounds. By best, I think it'll be over by the 6th round at best.
Well, we'll see. You know, I agree that Deontay has to fight the best fight of his career on Saturday night. There's no question about it. And I just think that if he just seek and destroy, it's going to be up to Ortiz to survive. And if he does, listen, I already made my prediction, but I'm also putting an asterisk. Make sure you remember what I'm saying. Do not be surprised if this fight ends in a controversial manner. Whether we all think that Ortiz wins on the scorecards and Deontay gets the nod, whether we get a disqualification, whether we get a technical decision going to the scorecards early, whether we get a cut that's not ruled, that a fighter can't continue. Whatever the case is, don't be surprised if we get a controversial decision in this fight. The only way that this fight would be, no BS, is if the winner wins by knockout, whoever that winner is, if it's Deontay or if it's Luis Ortiz. So may the best man win tomorrow night, and we will definitely be talking about all those fights on our post-fight show, which is Monday. We're not doing a post-fight show Saturday night. But one other thing while we're talking about heavyweight division, and this just proves why fighters end up in the position that they do. Chaz Witherspoon, who at one time was a contender in the heavyweight division, then went down into the cruiserweight division, and then now is back at the heavyweight division, who's never really been much. He's got a record of 36 wins and 3 losses with 28 wins by knockout. He is fighting next weekend, and he's taking on a guy that I know personally, a fighter who fought for me and, is a tough guy, but never trains. As a matter of fact, a night that I had him as a main event, one night, we go and check him out at the hotel, and he's sitting at the pool slamming down beers. This was the night before he won, and this is Mike Shepard. And Witherspoon's fighting Shepard on March 10th. My point of this isn't to promote the fight. My point about this is that Chaz Witherspoon could fight a couple of more of these kinds of opponents, and next thing you know, become somebody's mandatory. That, my friends, is the problem with the heavyweight division. Well, it's a problem with boxing in general. The bottom line is you need to climb a ladder. Chaz Witherspoon I'm just using him as an example. In order for him to become a mandatory, he needs to fight somebody that's a ranked fighter. No disrespect to my man Mike Shepard. He's not a ranked fighter. His record's 25 wins, 22 losses, and 2 draws. Not that records indicate anything, but you're not a top 10 contender. You're not even a top 25 contender. If you want to get you want to be a real fighter, climb the ladder. Prove that you can beat the guy on the next rung. Then climb that one, beat the guy up, and then eventually you get to the top and you fight him. That's the only way that you get better, and that's the only way that boxing can be where we want it. So enjoy the fights this weekend. And by the way, on this day, March 2nd, in 1996, Thulani Malinga wins a 12-round decision over Nigel Benn to win the WBC super middleweight title, and that took place in England. On this day in 1980, Hilmer Kenty knocks out Ernesto España in the 9th round to win the WBA World Lightweight title, and it took place in Detroit. On this day in 1929, Spider Pladner knocks out Frankie Gennaro in the 1st round to win the World Flyweight title. It took place in Paris. On this day in 1896, Charles K.O. McCoy knocks out Tommy Ryan in the 15th round to win the World Middleweight title, and that took place at the Empire Atlantic City in Queens, New York. That's was a athletic club, the Empire Athletic Club in Queens, New York in 1896. On this day in 1985, Aaron Pryor wins a 15-round split decision over Gary Hinton to retain his IBF World Junior Welterweight title. It took place in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And on this day, March 2nd, in 1975, one of Morgan Field's favorite fighters, Roberto Duran, knocks out Ray Lampkin in the 14th round to retain his WBA World Lightweight title, and that took place in Panama City on this day in 1975. Hey, boys and girls, make sure you enjoy. I got my my man right here, sitting right here. Make sure you enjoy the fights this weekend. But don't forget to tune in Monday morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.